Welcome back to Laurie's Stories. I am your host, Laurie, and my co-host, Luann, is behind the scenes. She is the one that makes me look good on social media. If you haven't yet, you can follow Laurie's Stories on Facebook, Instagram. That's where she posts like the sneak peek previews of what each episode is going to be about. She is usually the one that will post things in the description box, the notes underneath. I will have her post the link to my book. I am going to read a page again from my book today, which is called Joy in the Journey, 365 Whispers of Hope. I chose a random page that also kind of goes with we're kind of circling back to our story of coming out of the Amish a little bit. And the reason I chose that for today is because I was speaking at a library this morning. So I was kind of honed in on that subject anyway. So I thought I'm just going to carry it over into my podcast this afternoon instead of going to a different subject. So I travel around and I do these, I call them book talks, but what it is, I get asked to come and speak in different places, whether it's churches or libraries or just wherever people are curious about the Amish and they need permission to ask all those questions they've always wanted to ask. And I love it. I love talking about my culture because, like I've said before, I dearly love my people. And I feel like there's so many myths around the Amish, and it's fun to help straighten some of those out. So the page I chose today to read is on page 206 of my book, and it's called Baby with the Bathwater. Never in my current life did I expect to enjoy Mondays as much as I do in this current season of life. Looking back on my previous life, Mondays were filled with mountains of laundry, little ones, and my husband going back to work. Getting all the laundry done with an old-fashioned wringer washer and no dryer was a major chore, one I don't miss at all. It's okay to appreciate some things of how we were raised and to not appreciate other things. Laundry would have been so much more doable and made more sense with a washer and dryer. It's okay to embrace the good in cultures, messages, and even people, and let the parts go that we don't appreciate. Like the old saying goes, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. So true and great advice. Even today, I feel people want to put all their hope and trust into one culture or one church, one pastor or one mentor. But not one person, place, or thing has all the answers. That's actually a dangerous way to live. On Judgment Day, you and I will give account for our own lives. We won't be able to point to anyone else and say it's because of him or her or them. No, we will answer for ourselves. It is up to us today who we listen to and who we let influence our lives, minds, and hearts. Let's make sure it always measures up with what God has to say about it. First and foremost, Jesus is the only one with all the answers. In him alone, we put our trust. Psalms 20, verse 7 says, "Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God." And this is the prayer I wrote to go with this page. Jesus, thank you for being trustworthy. Teach us how to discern what to keep and what we need to weed out in every person, church, or culture. Help us to measure it all with your word and your wisdom. And looking back, it's kind of funny that I chose this particular page to read today. I had chose that this morning already, or maybe even yesterday. And then today in the book talk, one lady that had heard me speak previously at a library, she said, "Hey, can you just share the story again about how it was to do laundry?" Oh goodness. And then I had actually chosen this page to read to you guys today about how it really was to do laundry with 6 little children upstairs and an old-fashioned wringer washer downstairs with, like I said today, a motor that you had to start. Sometimes I could start it, sometimes I could not start it, and that was always very frustrating. And probably the danger for carbon monoxide was high, I assume. I don't really remember. I know that we would have an exhaust out the window or somewhere. Usually, my husband was pretty good about things like that, so he wouldn't have let anything happen to me. So I'm sure he had that figured out. But, I wasn't aware of those things back then like I am now. So, anyway, so I thought this would be a good page to go with some of the things I want to talk about today. And I am going to start today's episode with a question that we got from one of our listeners. So my friend, Randy, Reverend Menk, thank you for submitting this question. It goes perfectly with today's episode. And her question was, what was the determining factor that made you decide to leave the Amish community? That is a great question. And it's one that, when I travel and do book talks and things, that is almost always a question that comes up, is like, what made you leave? Or, and there is no one thing that made us leave. But like I shared today, we were never looking to leave the Amish culture, but we were hungry for the whole truth, because I feel like the Amish have some truth. They actually have quite a bit of truth. Most of them, at least, how should you say? I'll just leave that. But they do have quite a bit of truth. But then there was this whole other big part of truth that I feel like they don't tap into, or that they maybe don't even understand. So that's what we were yearning for deep inside of ourselves. And I don't think we even knew what that was in the beginning, but we started feeling restless, kind of unsettled, just not satisfied. I don't know if you've ever felt that in your life, where you felt kind of like, there has got to be more to life. And if there is, I want it, and if there isn't, then at least I would have tried to find it. But that's how we started our journey, was just that feeling of restlessness, that feeling of, I don't even know if it was discontentment, because we still had so much to be grateful for. We lived with his mom and dad in the backyard. We got to do chores for our rent, and we're blessed with families. I had 4 brothers and 4 sisters. So we were surrounded by family and community and a lot of good things. But when that yearning in your heart starts, there's you almost have to chase it and see okay, what's going on here? Why am I feeling this? And I do think, I do feel like there is a fine line between feeling to always be extremely grateful for what we have, but then also exploring that tension that you feel. And it can almost be like a holy discontent, where I'm not going to settle. I am just not going to settle. And I, for one, I love to be comfortable. I love comfort. I love just give me all the comfort. Give me my coffee. Give me all the things, but too much comfort for a long period of time can, I feel, sometimes stunt our growth a little bit. And I think it's okay to have periods of comfort. We need that. We can't always be on high alert. We need seasons of comfort, but to just seeking a lifestyle of comfort, I feel, can eventually stunt our growth if we stay comfortable too long. So all that to say, I feel like there's a fine line between restlessness and being content, and having deep gratitude for what we do have, but also reaching for the more at the same time. So to answer your question, Randy, it was that, like the questions that had no answers. And again, like I shared today, like even if we had questions, it seemed like there were no answers. Like it seemed like nobody had the answers for us. And we were either told to not ask questions, or we were told that, well, it's just always been like this. And if it was good enough for our forefathers and our parents and our grandparents, it should be good enough for us. But that just didn't quite cut it for us. So we started on a journey that gradually led us out of the Amish. It was at least 10 years and maybe more, because we came out very, very slowly. You know, I'm always amazed how some people can just be in that culture one day and be completely out the next day. But I always say, even if they change their clothes and they start driving cars and whatever, our hearts don't change that fast. It takes a long time for what we know in our head to catch up with our heart. So I feel like I am grateful. I am really grateful that we did it slowly and it gave our hearts time to adjust with what we were learning along the way. And often, or sometimes anyway, we would know things in our head, but we waited to act on it until we felt peace in our hearts that, okay, this actually is okay for us. For us, it wasn't good enough just because somebody said it's okay or other people were doing it. It was like almost like I especially was like that. I had to search it out for myself. I had to find the truth for myself. And because like I read, we will all give account. And I wanted to make sure that my conscience is clear and that I'm not just doing things because everybody else is doing it. No, it had to be right for me. So maybe I was just a slow learner. I don't know, but at any rate, it took 10 years for us to come out fully. But I have no regrets about that. But I think it was our hunger that led us out very slowly, and not just one thing or one incident. It wasn't like an incident or one day we decided to do this. It was our hunger. It was our search. It was our search for the whole truth. And I feel personally like we will be searching for the whole truth for the rest of our lives. I don't think we will ever arrive until we get to heaven and we see Jesus face to face. Then I think we can quit searching for truth and all the answers. And so, but that is what led us out, was the continual quest for the next step, for all that God has for us. And I know I've shared this before, but I'll just share it again to those of you who might find yourselves in a place like I just described, of feeling a holy discontent, or feeling like the tension, like there's got to be more to life. I'm just so tired of doing the same thing over and over. I dare you to pray that little dangerous prayer that I prayed back then, and I still pray it today. God, we want all that you have for us. We want to fulfill every assignment that you have for us while we're here on earth. Don't let us get stale. Don't let us get stagnant. But we want to fulfill our assignments. We want all of you. We want to experience all that is to be experienced in you as well. So yeah, if you're feeling bored with your life today, I dare you to pray that prayer and then see what happens. Maybe put your seatbelt on, because I never dreamed that it would take us, across many state lines into different states, different churches, different communities. But I am so grateful. I am so grateful for all the things we learned along the way and where our journey took us, and where we are today. I don't see us moving again anytime soon now, unless we would hear God tell us, do go here or go there. Or for a while, traveling back and forth to Africa, I wondered if he's going to send us over there. But he didn't, and he hasn't, and I don't believe that he will. And you might say, well, how do you know when it's God? How do you know, when it's God speaking? And that was actually a question I would get from my Amish family sometimes, was like, well, how do you know it's God? How do you know that is God's voice and not the enemy's voice? Well, and the first answer to that is, like, the Bible says that his sheep know his voice. And I consider myself one of his sheep, so I have learned to know my Father's voice. The second way I know is that his voice is still and quiet, never pushy, never loud, never dominant, but just still and gentle. And it might come a couple times, That those are two ways that I know when it's God's voice. Sometimes and it's I have never heard the audible voice of God. Now I know people have, and I am jealous. I would love to. Maybe I will one day. But I have not. For me, it's just a knowing that I know in my spirit. It's just like that, almost like a quickening that, that was God. And for me, it will come at the weirdest times. Often it happens when I'm cleaning. I don't know why. I don't even like to clean. But that is often when God will speak to me, or in the morning before I'm fully awake, because it is one time when I'm not talking. So I say that jokingly, but it is true. God often speaks to me in the morning, and I will just wake up knowing something. Maybe something that I had been praying about for a long time, or something that I had been asking God for, or something I had been searching for answers for. And all of a sudden, one morning, I will just wake up and there it is. There's the answer. That's how God speaks to me. He also speaks to us through nature. I believe we can learn so much just from watching nature, watching the pattern of nature. Sometimes he speaks through others. Sometimes he speaks through my husband. He has actually done that quite a bit. And I think it's the same for him. Sometimes God speaks through me to him as well. And I think if you're married and you love and respect each other, I think it should be like that. Let me rephrase that. I don't think it should be like that. I think sometimes it can be like that. It isn't always. It's not nearly always. I think often we need to hear for ourselves. So anyway, yeah, coming out of the Amish, we went through a lot of different seasons in life, and there were many times where we got to the end of a season or the end of a chapter, whatever you want to call it. I like to refer to our life as a book. And there's different chapters in there. Some chapters are longer than other chapters, but we definitely we have a lot of chapters in our book because of just our crazy story. But so do you. Your book has a lot of chapters too, and sometimes we get to the end of a chapter, and it truly feels like this is the end of the story. What good could come out of what we've just been through, or how can life go on with this? I know I have friends who feel like that. They're grieving, especially this time of year. I can think of several friends who are just really grieving, like having lost loved ones maybe just last year this time, or even longer. So while fall is such a glorious, beautiful time for me, I'm always aware that there are others who are grieving, and maybe it used to be a beautiful season for them, but it's not anymore. But you know what? And I can't speak on grief 100%. I've lost my father, and I've lost my mother-in-law and my father-in-law, but and dear friends. I've also lost dear friends, but I can't speak of losing like a child or a baby or even a brother or a sister. I can't speak for those of you who have been through that. But I do want to encourage you that it doesn't have to be the end of your story. It doesn't. Life will somehow be beautiful again. And I was just I was sharing with one of my friends recently who lost a grandson just last year this time, and she's just I cannot imagine that. And she we discussed how sometimes to move on, it might be helpful to think, what would the loved one want us to do? Like, if would they want you to live in grief for the rest of your life, or would they want you to move on and look for happiness? Because it is okay It is okay to have deep grief over here and still look for joy again over here. We can hold both at the same time. It's part of that tension again, living in that tension of, I'm extremely sad over here. But if we don't, this is what I told my friend, if we don't go after joy and look for things that we can find joy in again, we will die from a broken heart. There is such a thing. So all that to say, it is totally normal and okay to hold joy in one hand and hold deep sorrow in the other hand. We can hold both. And then often that is not the end of the story. It might be the beginning of a new chapter, and hopefully joy will come in the next chapter. And then I also wanted to talk a little bit about, because we got to two times in our journey when it was obvious that God was closing a door. And sometimes we literally didn't know what now? What is the next step? What door is going to open? And I read this recently and I thought it was funny, so I'm going to share this. It said, when God closes a door, check the window. Believe me, we've probably all done that. I know I have. When he's closed the door that I was not ready to have closed, I would check the window and try to beat down a new door, but it just doesn't work. Sometimes we literally have to be patient and wait. And like Joyce Myers says, when God closes a door, there might be hell in the hallway before the next door opens. But if that is the case, there's probably something that we need to learn before the next door opens for us. Like, we're in that hallway for a reason. And so instead of asking, why am I still here? The good question to ask is, what are you trying to teach me? Because I don't know if you've heard this, but this has helped me many times. God is so much more interested in our journey than he is our final destination. We are so impatient and we just want to get to the end of the journey, the final chapter. But God is not. He is so interested in our journey, and along the way he shapes us and he molds us and he makes us who he wants us to be. And sometimes that means he leads you out of the only culture you ever knew, which is the case for my husband and I. But if we yield to his gentle leading, we can trust that he will lead us right. He will lead us right. So I think that is all I have for this time. I wanted to start getting some questions answered, so I can probably make a whole podcast out of each question because I go down so many rabbit trails. But that's actually what's kind of fun for me, is if I can just kind of speak from my heart and not try to follow too many notes, because then whatever. But as always, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for following along and subscribing. If you enjoy watching episodes, we are on YouTube. It's just called Laurie's Stories. And then we're on Facebook. Anywhere you choose to listen, you can. And if you subscribe and share, that helps us get out there as well. We're just an up and coming little podcast, and we're going to kind of see what happens. So thank you so much for listening and for watching. And if you want to check out my book, it is on Amazon. It's called Joy in the Journey. Again, 365 Whispers of Hope. And I wrote this. It's like a daily devotional with bits and pieces of our Amish story, struggles along the way, coming out of the Amish, and why the Amish do some of what they do, with a Bible verse that ties it all together for a daily devotional. And I've gotten really good feedback. So if you need a new devotional for the new year, now would be a good time to go on Amazon and buy yourself one. All right, till next time, be blessed.